Good morning and welcome to the Daniel Baldwin Show. It is Monday, the 24th of March, and I have an interesting show for you. I did a lot of research on the show, and I'm doing some different lighting. I've turned off some lights and left this one light. Is it more dramatic? Does it look better? I don't know. For somebody who's directed as many movies and acted in as many movies as I have, you'd think I would know, but no, there's a guy who does that on films. I've used a few of the same guys. My good friend Massimo Zeri, for instance, is a director of photography, and he comes in and makes everything look great. That's not my department, but we'll see. Today's show is about Jeffrey Epstein, because I don't know if you realize, but they're frantically redacting paperwork, the FBI right now. I'm not sure why. I think for reasons of national security, there might be names or information that are on some of these files that need to be redacted and taken off. But basically, there's a few things I want to make clear on today's broadcast. Ooh, the hourglass. The hourglass. What's the matter with me? I want to put to rest a couple of things that don't make a lot of sense. Remember when you say, well, the FBI reported, or the CIA reported, or the officials at the jail where Epstein was found dead, presumably of a suicide, reported. That's what they're telling you. That's what they reported. That's the information that they're putting out there for you to sway your opinion. And, you know, when you look at the sources of information today, they're so askew that, you know, people will write crazy stuff on the internet going, that's not what they said happened. Well, who gives a crap what they said happened? There's what happened and then what they said happened. And you can look at forensics and different protocols, and you can say, well, there's no way that happened. So I want you to be the jail guard having lunch. Or I think it was at some time in the morning they found Epstein's body. I want you to be the guy, you know, having his morning breakfast, and someone comes running in and go, oh my God, they just found Jeffrey Epstein dead in his cell. Oh yeah? What happened? They said it was an apparent suicide. Oh yeah? Sorry, I'm gonna finish my yogurt. Really? So a few things to keep in mind about Jeffrey Epstein. There were reports that Epstein had been complaining to the psychiatrist at the facility. How was he going to make it? His concerns about being in jail, how much time. You know, this was not somebody who you were going to put in a jail cell and they were going to adjust very, very well. This is not somebody, this is a very affluent, rich guy who probably wasn't going to do well in a jail setting. So he would have been in protective custody, kept away from other elements that would have taken advantage of him in the jail. There's one. Jeffrey Epstein has been dead for 3 years, but his ghost still wanders the dark halls of the internet. In life, Epstein was a secretive financier arrested for a series of sexual crimes with underage girls. In death, speculation about his suicide in jail formed an additional layer of conspiratorial fog around his legacy. So, at no time do I want anyone watching this think for a second that I support anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I support, as I do in a lot of, in everything that I do in my show, the truth. And I try to expose things that are logical, that make sense, that are scientific. And I try to expose things that are theoretical, and I try to expose things that are absolute BS. So, the idea, let's get one thing right out straight. The idea that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested for these crimes and that he killed himself in that jail cell, in my estimation, are about zero. I believe that 0% of the time. He had already made supposed attempts and references to suicide, even was taken to the hospital for some ligature or something that was on his neck. So he would have absolutely been on suicide watch. The garments that he wore, the sheets, everything would have been a protocol of a style that would not support his weight for him to hang himself. They would have been more paperish, like in a hospital, and tore away. Like when you go into the doctor's office and they pull that paper stuff over the examining table. It would have been stuff like that. It wouldn't have been stuff that he could, twist around and put it. Not in this case. Not in a high-profile case where suicide had already been attempted or was discussed. This wouldn't have happened. Why would there not have 24/7 been a camera on Jeffrey Epstein? He was absolutely somebody who could have been targeted. He was absolutely someone who was definitely in danger because of the information that he supposedly carried with him. Now, let's talk about that danger, and let's talk about that information. The Federal Bureau of Prisons, in a statement, said that inmate Jeffrey Edward Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell at approximately 6:30 a.m. on August 10th from an apparent suicide. The staff of the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York administered life-saving measures until the emergency medical services team could arrive and transport him to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead, the statement said. So I'm going to imagine, I don't have this as a fact, but that in the corridors or something near where this cell is, there's a camera. They don't think to put a camera on Epstein, someone who is clearly a suicide risk, clearly has talked about ending his life, has made an attempt or something they found around his neck, reports suggested days before this incident occurred. The New York Post photo of the former wealthy financier being wheeled into New York downtown hospital shows the unresponsive Epstein. That photo is now being circulated by conspiracy theorists as evidence that Epstein is still actually alive. So I don't believe that this photo, which I've seen, I don't have it. Let's see if we can pull it up. If we can, we'll put it up now. If not, so does this photo prove that Epstein is alive? No. And this is where you take some of the connectivity of the show and my experience, strength, and hope, and things that I've learned over years. Again, am I a New York City detective or a detective formerly of a police force? No. But I will say, believe it or not, that when you play a detective in a TV series, or if you play a detective in a high-profile movie, you're given access to technical people on set that have for many, many years, that say things to you. Like, for instance, when I did Homicide: Life on the Streets, we had a tech from the Baltimore Homicide Division that would say, yeah, we would never do that. That's not how you would do it. What you would do is pick up the object and then put it into the bag, look at and they would take you through step by step, because you want to look good and you want to do it. You don't want to offend anyone that's actually a homicide detective, and you want to educate the public that's watching on exactly how a Baltimore homicide detective or a Baltimore cop, or how they would, secure a crime scene, for instance, especially technical stuff. So I have a lot of that experience. I have a lot of really, really acclaimed professional writers and hands-on, because they've been detectives or investigators or private investigators, military. People explain to me, and teach me how to do it. So I have some education in it. And so I will tell you that the whole Jeffrey Epstein killed himself in a cell, I do not buy at all. I don't believe that's how he died. I don't. If he died. And I'll get to that in a minute. CNN, FBI agents are working around the clock, some in 12-hour overnight shifts, on a frenzied mission this week. The urgent work isn't an impending national security threat, but instead reviewing documents and other evidence in the investigation of accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein to make the redact before the Justice Department releases them publicly, according to people familiar with the situation. So we get teased by Bondi's office that we're about to receive the Epstein files. We're pretty interested. Why are we pretty interested? What's really the reason why we're really interested? Let me read some of them. Christine Maxwell, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, John Connolly, Alan Dershowitz, Leonardo DiCaprio, Al Gore, Michael Jackson, Kevin Spacey. I mean, the list goes on and on. Now, I'm reading a list that has been released of names that are mentioned in the files already, the pre-approved release. And there's many, many more. So these are famous people. and the things that are being said happened or could have happened on the island, I believe it's pretty accepted that there was sex with underage girls and boys that occurred on this island. Am I suggesting that the names I just read, or that any of the names on this list, actually had sex with minors on this island? No, I'm not saying that. I'm going to tell you from my experience. Again, this is where I try to link it for you. This is where I try to bring maybe some more sight to it so you understand. Because I'm not somebody who's just blindly, MAGA or Republican or Democrat or left or right or any of it. I'm analyzing this as forensically and openly as I possibly can. I, in my marriage to my beautiful wife, Deasia, have been asked already, and this is has been happening to me for a long, long time. Would you like to come to the Prince's so-and-so event? It's in his country. Would you like to come to this mega billionaire philanthropist party in Central America? Would you like to come to this president? And you get the picture. And so you look at that, and when it's somebody that you can look at, and you look at the list of people that are who's coming to it. Oh, this guy was president at one time. Oh, this guy's the head of a big company, Coca-Cola, or this, governor, this guy, Prince so-and-so. Yeah, that sounds like it would be a lot of fun. We're going to send an airplane and fly you there. Would you present an award? Would you, speak? Would you sit at this table? So-and-so is a big Baldwin brother fan, whatever it is. Well, yeah, that sounds lovely. So now you have to find somebody to watch the baby, probably my mother-in-law, rent a tux, or, my wife's going to want a new dress to walk there's costs that are incurred from going to this. They're not paying me to go or any of that nonsense. So, but they're paying for offsetting some of the cost of the flight, the hotel, whatever. Am I responsible for what takes place at the party after that? Even if it's at the mansion or the place I was at. Am I responsible for what happens in private casitas and rooms on the grounds of so-and-so's island? Do I have anything to do with the antics? When you go to a P. Diddy party, and it's a big award show, it's after the Grammys, and he's having a party, and you go there and you see all these famous people. No, I'm not responsible for anything that happens at 3 o'clock in the morning when the party's been shut down, and these freak show parties or freak offs or whatever they call it. No, I'm not. and nor is my name being invited to the initial party to be mentioned in what's going on there. So I don't believe for 1 second, that the current president of the United States, who went to, if he was there, and he's on this list, went to this island, had sex with anybody that was underage or did anything inappropriate. This is a guy who's never even had a drink. He's never smoked pot, he's never done a drug, he's never had a drink. No, I don't believe that he did anything like that at all. I don't. Now, is he going to speak on whether he was there on some business deal? Was Jeffrey Epstein about to buy some giant building with him? Was he putting together a conglomeration of people? I believe that he did legitimate big business. The guy was very, very wealthy. He owned planes, islands, the biggest apartment in all of Manhattan, blah, blah, blah. So he was obviously a business savvy guy. Do I believe that there are people on this list that flew there multiple times and did know what was going on? You bet your ass I do. You betcha I do. And so what Epstein did and why I don't believe, and how this ties together with why I don't believe that he committed suicide for sure, that I know he didn't do. That I know, in my heart, I'm going to say, that I know isn't true. He didn't kill himself in a cell. So now, just to keep this safe, can I prove that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself? No, I can't. Does it logically make any sense to me, and do I believe that he killed himself in the cell? No. So that's one down. That leaves 2 things left. Why would someone kill Jeffrey Epstein, in a cell, in a situation that was clearly going to bring a lot of scrutiny, a lot of people, it's like watching the bricks come flying out of 9/11 ahead of the collapse, the explosions of the, oh, that's the pressure pushing down on the building. I'm back to the guard and eating the yogurt. Yeah. Oh, he killed himself. Oh, wow. Ooh. Wonder how he did that in a jail cell. He killed himself, did he? Oh. Okay. Can you imagine the prison guards there going, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? He didn't kill himself. Do you really buy that? Do you buy this guy hung himself in that cell? Like, I don't want to laugh at the death of him. It's the death of anyone. If anyone had it coming, it was this guy. But remember something. Remember why I don't believe he's dead. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I'm going to take it to the next level and explain it to you. If he's dead, why isn't Sean Combs dead? Doesn't he have the names of a lot of really famous people and potentially rumored videotapes? So if you want to secure that you're going to stay alive, videotape it. So the rumor for Epstein is they came to the island, and this is what I think probably happened. This again is theory. So you bring in there on legitimate business. You're Bill Clinton, you're the president, you're this guy, you're that guy, and you come. Now remember, there's two words in affiliation with President Clinton, who I voted for, and I like, and I've met, and I supported. Those two words are Monica Lewinsky. So we know Bill likes young girls. Well, she wasn't underage young, but she was pretty young. He was married. He was in the White House, according to the accusations and everything. Again, I wasn't there. I wasn't smoking the cigar that night, so I don't know. But this woman evidently smeared semen of the active president on her shirt or dress, and then put that in an envelope, sealed it, and put it in a safe deposit box, just to be sure. Now, that sounds to me like she wanted to get paid. It does. It was preemptive. Why would you save it? Were you fearful of your life because of what was going on? Were you in love with the president and you wanted to preserve your own? I don't know. I guess you'd have to talk to Monica about that one. But what most assuredly kept her alive was his DNA was on that dress. The president's DNA. Can't get rid of her now. She still lives today. Oh, it was a terrible indiscretion. Okay, Bill. So now Bill Clinton is mentioned in these files. He may be totally clean. He may have been there on business, but he's got a strike against him. So that makes him fall under the scrutiny. How does that affect national security? How does that affect keeping Epstein alive? So if Epstein supposedly kept cameras in these rooms and on all these famous people, and I mean send them to room 7. Have Gloria go in and say hello. So they come for meetings and they catch the eye at the pool of some very attractive younger girl. Let's give the benefit of the doubt. She's, she looks like she could be as young as 20 or 19, and it turns out she's 15. Now, are you lying to the client? Are you lying to the visitor, telling him this girl is of age? Or is the entire turn on and sick, sadistic, driving force the fact that you know this is a child, and you know this is illegal, and you know this is one of the only places that you feel that you safely can go there and have this occurrence happen? For those men or women that knew you were having a sexual relationship with a minor, they should be prosecuted. Their careers should be over. I believe on this list, there are people that knew that. Epstein filmed it, which means he can prove that they were with them. Now, if you go with the take on it that I didn't know how old that person was, that tape, that film puts you in prison. It doesn't matter what you knew. You did it. You're going to jail. Your career is over. Your legacy is going to be destroyed forever. There's some pretty big names in politics, business, monarchy, film, music that will never be seen the same if there's film that proves that they did it. Jeffrey Epstein filmed those things. Do you believe that the FBI raided Jeffrey Epstein's apartment or raided Jeffrey Epstein's island and got all those films? Do you believe if he went to the effort to film these celebrities, to ensure after being arrested and after everything that happened, you don't believe they're in a vault in some lawyer's office that can't be touched? Now, I'm not suggesting that these people that are this level of power don't have access to get into the lawyer's vault. I don't know. It sounds like, some pretty damning evidence. But think again what I'm saying and what I believe the value I bring to talk about subjects like this, because I've been signed to law firms that are really, really big, famous law firms in Los Angeles that handle some of the people on these lists. I have access to some of the people. I know some of the people on these lists. I've met them. I've worked with them. I've broken bread with them. I've been to events with them. Nobody really that on these lists so far, what I say, is a great friend of mine. But there have been mentions of even family members of mine that have been suggested that I've been to this island or whatever. I don't believe that any family member of mine or anyone I know well ever went to the island or did anything inappropriate, or because, like I said, you get invited to go to these things, and I think they kind of feel you out. They put you there, and then they see how you react to the intermingling that you have, and then they suddenly offer up, hey, you're here alone. If you'd like to go get a massage from Gwendolyn here, we can set that up for you. When you make that move, if you're a married man, if you're in a relationship, they got you. They know. And if you make that move on somebody who is apparently younger, that's not of age, and particularly you're told. So again, is all this on film? Does this girl or boy walk into a room to give a massage or to have a drink with you or whatever, and they say, I'm only 15. And then you walk to a hotel room with them? You're done. You're done. But Epstein has that on film. Let me repeat that to you. Let me explain what this means. Epstein had those interactions and the sexual acts filmed. They're not going to kill Jeffrey Epstein. He's got the film over here. He's saying, yeah, I'm not spending the rest of my life in prison. Or I'm going to release these films and change American political history. I'm going to release these films and I'm going to screw up hundreds of billions of dollars of income of people and businesses. And so I don't buy it. I don't buy that Epstein even died. I don't. I think more than likely they knew he had it. They had to make it look like he died. And of course, how are they going to do that? They're not going to say, we sent somebody in there and killed him. So if he is dead, someone went in there and murdered him, in my opinion. The suicide thing is a joke to me. So that did not happen. I don't buy that for a second. Now, when I look at it being a hit, that they sent someone in to protect some of these famous names, and there's so many high-ranking, influential, because how else would you get into a cell? It's not like a guard. It had to have been somebody who was dressed as a guard, who had access to the cell, who would have turned off cameras. People would have looked the other way and listened to this guy choking to death. That would be a tough one to pull off, but not impossible. Not impossible. Tommy, go take a smoke break. We're talking about choking someone to death. That wouldn't have taken that long to do. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I think he had too much power. And I think when you look at what's going on right now in the White House, I think you have to wonder, will the current administration allow the American people to be so shocked? So what are they redacting that they're spending all these man hours? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not somebody that's an expert in national security, and certainly I know that if I read in the JFK files, which were released, this theory, which is compared to the Oswald theory in the beginning that he shot, and the Warren Commission's report, which was complete BS. I mean, obviously, Oswald didn't act alone if he even fired a single round. But you look at this new footage about a special handgun that the driver turned, and you see him turning in the Abraham Zapruder film, and he fires. It looks like he fires, or there's a reaction to it. There would have been a minimal amount of kick. It would have been an electronic gun. They had this technology, and that's what hits Jack Kennedy and blows his skull open. And I don't know, but these are relatively new compared to some of the older stuff. So if we're going to release the information, but then we're going to redact it, and we're going to take out things that, in your judgment or your staff's judgment, well, what's the protocol to determining that? Is there, the names of someone who were involved that was a Russian spy and that would endanger him and his family? Is there, I'm reaching for it, but I'm trying to figure out, who are we protecting? If Hillary Clinton was involved and knowingly had sexual relations or was aware of the fact, here's another thing too. What if she didn't do anything wrong? What if, like I said, her, Trump, Bill Clinton, what if none of them did anything? What if it's just some of these wild, crazy actors or whatever? Maybe there's only a couple of them. I don't know. What if they knew, though? So play this out. If you're a famous actor and you're going down there because you're, a freak into this weird, disgusting, ungodly activity with underage children having sex, and you are the Secretary of State or the former First Lady, whatever the relationship was that you had to America at the time, and you're aware, you absolutely know that this is going on down there, are you guilty of anything? Are you morally guilty of anything? If the rumors go around for a long time, at what point do you become responsible for your actions that you went to that island? So again, I'm not saying that any of these people that I know of had sex on this island with underage people or did whatever they did. What I'm saying is, where do we draw the line? Do we draw the line at saying you are a government official, you're a high profile, it might have even been your own husband that was involved? Do you owe tattling and making this known, or putting an end to it, or shutting this guy? If you're Hillary Clinton, could you shut Jeffrey Epstein down? You bet your ass she could have. Yeah, she knew enough people that she could have shut this guy down. So what did she know? That's another thing. What can you prove? What's in these papers that you can prove that you know? I find it very interesting that it's being redacted. That saddens me because I want to read the file. I want to read what they know, exactly when it happened, when the FBI found out about this, and this. And what's the responsibility of the government agencies as they uncovered this information? And what did they do about it? What was their response? I mean, we're talking about the sexual attacks on a minor. If that happened in my house, if that happened in a business and in a party at the end of a movie, and there'd have been cops everywhere dusting stuff and taking statements and looking for semen and blood transfer and all kinds of crazy forensic stuff they can do now that puts a target on exactly who it needs to be on because of how you can identify people forensically right now. What was the response? Jeffrey Epstein's brother doesn't believe he died by suicide and wants a new investigation. Mark Epstein doesn't accept Justice Department report that found jail officials guilty of negligence, but said the death was suicide. The night before Jeffrey Epstein flew from Paris back to New York in July 2019, he called his brother Mark. The pair had been in contact only occasionally since their mother died 15 years earlier, and it was the last time they ever spoke. Mark Epstein says his brother had no inkling he was going to be arrested as he stepped off the jet in Teterboro in New Jersey. He believed he had been granted immunity from federal prosecution under a 2007 plea deal reached with the U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta when he pleaded guilty to state charges of soliciting a minor. So, brother doesn't talk to him that often since the mother's death. Some 15 years go by. They only talk occasionally. And from this conversation, Epstein's brother surmises that he doesn't have any idea he's about to land in New Jersey at the smaller airport, Teterboro, and be arrested. He's under the opinion that the deal he made with Acosta covers him to re-enter the United States from Paris. You got to ask yourself another question. If Epstein thought he was in danger of being arrested, and he has all this money, and he has these assets, and he's in Paris, why would he fly back into the U.S.? Why would he come back in and put himself in harm's way? I'm just speaking from his personal standpoint. If this was even a possibility, you stay in Paris, you have your lawyers figure this out, represent you, use your connections. I mean, on this list are some pretty high-powered people. He couldn't have had the lawyers call a former president or a big leader and say, hey, what's going on at the state's attorney's office there? Why do they want me back so bad? Again, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But having film, that keeps you alive. That keeps you alive. Epstein didn't kill himself is a meme referring to multiple conspiracy theories surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein that dispute the official ruling of suicide by hanging. Jeffrey Epstein was an American financier and convicted sex offender with connections to powerful and wealthy people, and his reported suicide led to numerous hypotheses about the nature and cause of his death. The phrase became a colloquialism as well as an internet meme, gaining traction in November of 2019 as more of the circumstances around the death became public. The most common theory asserts that the true cause of death was homicide via strangulation, arranged by one or more co-conspirators to prevent him from revealing any compromising information. Now, that was my initial reaction to, they whacked him. This is, I grew up in New York. So we grew up around John Gotti and the Gambino crime families and all that stuff. The Godfather in the 70s was fascinating to me. I knew lots of Italian Americans, some of which were rumored to be connected to things, when I was younger. Mess with him, his father is so-and-so, that kind of stuff. That was the first take I had. Well, there's no, again, the suicide thing, I never even considered that could be true. Never for a second. And I know corrections people, I know people who've worked at this facility, they had the yogurt. They didn't buy it either. So that went out the window immediately. Now, was this guy going to talk? Is this the classic, we're going to take the guy out before he turns state's evidence? And it felt like that to me. Like I said, though, with one exception. What's your ace in the hole? So you're about to go testify and you're afraid they're going to come, get you. They're going to blow the car up. They're going to assassinate you. Sonny Corleone at the Jones Beach, turnstile. They're going to open fire on you. And then you make a phone call, you FaceTime, and you got the guy's daughter. Or you have his wife. You have his mother. That's the film. That's the spy cams that he put in those rooms. That was his insurance policy. That's why I got to tell you, I do not believe Jeffrey Epstein is dead. I don't buy it. Not with the film. Where's the film? Where's the one sacrificial lamb? Where's the state's evidence that they're going to show one guy, they're going to give one guy a big name, Bill Cosby. They're going to show him with some young boy or girl, whatever they're going to, again, I'm not saying Bill Cosby was there. I'm just saying, where's the one sacrificial lamb? Where's the one sacrificial lamb, super famous NBA basketball player, whatever, in the P. Diddy scandal? If they have all this stuff filmed, where's the J-Lo film? Haven't seen it yet. Rumors have it that there's people that are actually representation for some celebrities that are trying to buy the rumored film. It's like literally an auction. I don't know what good that does Sean if he's in prison. I'm not sure how that works. But certainly, if the right people are on those films, does that get him out of prison? I remember we brought up Cosby just now. I want you to think about Cosby for a second. Think about what he was accused of. Think about the number of high-profile women that came up legit. You weren't thinking they were just naming him, trying to get money, trying to get a paycheck, as, many different women throughout history have admitted later it wasn't true. There was that famous case of the lacrosse players from, I think, Duke. And, that woman wasn't in the right place mentally, but she admitted later that she made it up, that those boys did not attack her, which was a terrible thing for those boys and their families. Sadly, there's a lot of those cases that are true, and those boys get away with it because she was an African-American woman and they were white boys and they had more money and, justice wasn't served. So it was a topsy-turvy feeling for me when she came out and she said that. But the point that I'm trying to make was, in that case, and I quote it because these women that accused Cosby were pretty legit and their stories were very similar. And Cosby was found guilty. And suddenly, after all that stuff, Cosby gets out. Now, I realize his influence on America, he was seen, as this amazing shining example of fatherhood in the African-American community. Very, very popular, very connected. But we're not talking one or two women. We're talking about, it was like a big number, 15, 18 were verified or something, that he drugged them, sexually abused them, and their stories are all very similar. And he was found guilty. And he was sentenced to some big number. He was sentenced to a lot of years, and he got out. So whoever it was that he knew, however it was that they worked it, he probably should have died in prison for what he did, and he did not. He got out. So do I look at Jeffrey Epstein and do I see somebody that's connected enough that would have had the influence? I don't know. I don't know if he could have walked. I certainly think he could have been put in a position due to his power to have put up an astronomical amount of bail money and then fled. What's your freedom worth? So if you have to put up, $50 million bond and then you just never show up again, he had that kind of money. I think that was a risk. If you have to put up or live the rest of your life in prison, what type of lifestyle in a federal prison would you be able to live, avoiding death, when you have those kinds of assets? He probably could have done that too. He could have done that. Not only do I not think that Jeffrey Epstein and his lawyers felt that he was going to stay in prison for any great length of time, did he have access to get out, but I think the ace in the hole is the film. So because that there was pretty verified sources that said he filmed some of these people, these high-profile people, that kept him safe. That prevented him from what they rumored happened to him. He didn't kill himself. That I'm not buying for a second. Did someone go in there in broad daylight, or that night if he was found at 6:20 in the morning, and kill him overnight with guards that walk by and check and on suicide watch already? No. So I traced, the different theories. There was a footage of a guy, film pictures of a guy who greatly resembles Epstein in Lebanon. So was a deal made to get him out of there? Could he have the connection to put a body double in? They're talking about JFK's brain was switched, like because the chemicals that were in the gunshot, that the driver shot him. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. The theories of, fires burning that are set by lasers in California, and, floods that are started by weather control devices at HARP and beyond in North Carolina because mining companies want the lithium and the quartz. And, just these incredibly crazy theories come out. I try, when I don't know, when I can't prove, to apply logic, history, logic, access, forensics, science. So I'm going to conclude pretty soon. No, I do not believe Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. I don't believe that. Do I believe one of the other two accepted theories, which would be, once you rule out that he killed himself, which is the official version right now, that someone went in there and killed Jeffrey Epstein? I still think that's possible. So, is it possible he's dead? It's possible. Do I believe it? No, I don't. I don't believe it. I believe that he's probably still alive. I believe he's being kept somewhere where his vast wealth allows him to live. And more importantly, other people's wealth would allow him to. What if George Soros back in the day was on the island having sex with, minor children? Again, I haven't even seen his name, so please don't come back and be like, why would you say George? What if, one of the Bushes? What if, Ronald Reagan? What if, so let me make sure I also mention, in potentially saying this, a high-level Republican, because, I'm going to hear all this crap from everybody about, I only name in my hypothetical examples people that are on the right and not the, everybody's game in this game that I'm talking about right now. What if they were mentioned? What if their reputation forever? What if politics and policy? What if the damage we're talking about affected whether wars break out in other countries? Whether entire companies' reputations are ruined and the finances of hundreds of billions of dollars of investment and stock are affected? I think that's what we're talking about. I think we're talking about names that have that kind of influence, that they're being this careful with what information they're allowing to come out, what comes under the title of national security. And what does this guy have? What does this guy have that would prove to you, that would alter the path of 8 years in the White House? That would, again, I don't know. Are any of the Bush's families, is Barack Obama, is this one's out? I don't know. But he had stuff in there that has still made it that we don't know what happened. That is, I mean, if this was any other criminal and these names weren't involved, we would already see everything. So the only reason why you're not seeing what's going on is because of how big the names are involved in this. The names are huge. The names are huge. Man, I want it to come out. I do. I want you to see that my theory is absolutely right. I want someone to find him. And again, his life could be ended that quickly. They would know right where he is and who's, keeping him alive and that kind of thing. But remember what I said. No, I don't believe Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. I don't believe that. Do I believe it's possible that someone killed Jeffrey Epstein in his cell? Yes, I believe that that's possible, but not as highly likely as the fact that Jeffrey Epstein is still alive. That I believe, like the brother, he didn't commit suicide, nor do I even believe he's dead. Now, whether we're going to see these films remains to be seen. Whether there's things that are so damaging. Now, I believe that if you watched the film and saw a high-ranking official to the United States government or whoever it's going to be, and you release that, the hell with that guy or that girl. The hell with them. Look what they did on the film. And they knew it? Let their reputation fry forever. Expose them. Expose them. Get it out. Let people know what we really voted for, or who's really running the company that you own stock in, or who's really the movies that you're watching, the music that you're listening to. That scumbag, that piece of crap is who you're spending your money on. I want to know that. I want to spit them. I want to spit at them. How disgusting is that? God's going to get even with these people. I promise you. It won't matter. It won't matter. These pedophile creeps that live in Los Angeles, that not everybody in Los Angeles, but the ones that are talking about, if they did this, take it all from them. Take everything from them and expose them. So I want to read this to you. The Maxwell trial. After Epstein's death, his former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, came into the spotlight. She was arrested in July 2020, and her secluded mansion in the U.S. state of New Hampshire on suspicion of having assisted Epstein abuse minors by helping to recruit and groom victims known to be underage. In December 2021, a jury in New York City found her guilty on five of 6 counts, including the most serious charge, that of sex trafficking of a minor. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison, meaning the 60-year-old could spend the rest of her life behind bars. And it is a lawsuit brought against her by Ms. Roberts that will see the names of dozens of associates of Epstein's potentially made public. The Oxford-educated Maxwell is said to have introduced Epstein to many of her wealthy and powerful friends, including Bill Clinton and the Duke of York. She made a statement and said something to the effect of, I hope that my incarceration and my being found guilty brings you some relief for those people that I harmed or hurt or whatever, something to that effect. She knows. This woman knows. Why didn't she commit suicide? Why didn't they kill her? She knows. She introduced him to these high-level pedophiles that would be clients that would come. Remember, once he has that videotape, once he's in possession of those videos, they have to do what he needs done. Now, I don't mean that he's going to extort money, but it could be that. I don't mean that he's going to blackmail people, but it could be that. He could win favor in political decisions that go far beyond, could you have that kind of evidence against someone and sway the support of a president to elect somebody you want elected? A judge, say, or probably those types of things. Think about the chess game going on there. I want you to elect my friend in the 6th district of, Texas, And I want him to have that seat as a judge where I do a lot of business. And now this judge is going to affect how my business is governed judicially in the state for which I make millions and millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. You see the way that I'm talking now? He could have that kind of influence if he had those movies. The answer to why Maxwell hasn't committed suicide or hasn't been killed, she doesn't have the film. Somebody behind Epstein has the film, or Epstein has the film. And if Epstein's still alive, he still has the film. And film doesn't lie. Film will show, and they can determine whether they've used any editing tools or AI or whatever. If he has film of what happened in those rooms on that island, I don't think anyone's going to be able to kill him. I don't think he's going anywhere. Epstein is alive. That's what I think. So, as you know, I end my shows in prayer. And so if prayer isn't something that you align with, then I'll see you on Friday for another adventure in the theories and the speculations of the Daniel Baldwin show. But if you do pray, here we go. Lord God, thank you so much, Lord. We love you and we praise you. Thank you so much for your guidance and for looking over my family, the abundance that I receive every day, God. I'm so grateful. And Lord, I want to pray for any of the people, any of the children that suffered on this island or as a result of the abuses of these grown men and women. What a terrible thing to happen for anyone to be sexually abused and taken advantage of, God. So we reach out and we say, we're sorry for their trials and tribulations, and Lord, help them heal and help them live a wonderful, loving Christian life. Amen. That's the end of the show. Lot to digest and think about. Jeffrey Epstein, is he alive?